All right, so crypto is moving at a breakneck speed. It's easy to just forget what was months ago, even weeks ago. And I think the most important relevant event of this year was the final approval of Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs. And this was an important event because this was years in the making. The first ETF application was filed back in 2013 by Winklevoss brothers, and it was a decade-long fight. And on the screen, you can see the assets under management for all the combined Bitcoin ETF, excluding GBTC and Ethereum. And why is this important? First, the truly digital commodities, which is the digital gold and digital compute power, have been admitted to the club of traditional financial assets. That was a big event, and that was long awaited from the crypto community. While Bitcoin was a success and is still a success, is gaining momentum and gaining assets under management, Ethereum is kind of trending downwards. This can signify, this could mean that probably there's less of a appetite for digital compute power such as ETH, or investors will see that ETH is competing with Solana or any other crypto assets in the field. Well, another important thing is that ETH is no longer a security. That was still discussed last year, and now the question is kind of resolved that ETH is no longer a security. What is also important to mention that the approval of ETF was a direct result of a court ruling and judgment that was issued back in 2013. If you remember, Grayscale went to the appeal court and they managed to convince that the denial of ETF was capricious and arbitrary, and the court ruled that the SEC has to approve the ETF, which is a good testament to the fact that there is a separation of power even in the United States, and when the executive branch thinks one thing, the courts can think otherwise, and that this will shape the policy moving ahead. Maybe there is a path for Solana or any other assets to get listed eventually as an exchange-traded fund. Another important trend, I think, is that this year we saw that blue chips keep facing scrutiny in the United States. Coinbase lost its motion to dismiss, and their case is heading to trial next year, and that will be perhaps one of the most important consequential cases next year. Just like with the ETF, when they managed to convince that it needs to be approved, probably this case will be equally consequential for the crypto industry. Uniswap got a Wells notice, which is a notification from SEC that there is ongoing investigation against them. OpenSea gets a Wells notice, and Ethereum Foundation faces inquiry and perhaps also getting a Wells notice. Getting a Wells notice becomes such a commodity that if you don't get a Wells notice, probably you're not building something interesting nowadays, right? So along with that, we saw that even the most lured up projects, such as the names that I put in the previous slides, are not immune from the enforcement actions. But these guys are willing to take up the cases to the court and go up all the way up, perhaps to the Supreme Court, to build and to convince the judges of their case. I think that the most important cases next year will be Coinbase and Kraken, maybe a Ripple case because this SEC filed an appeal. So this will shape the industry moving ahead. But there is a chance that this will change within your administration. As you know, next week there are elections in the States, and it's still 50-50, not clear who's going to win, but we're going to speak about this in a minute. And also this year we saw that regulators hate and are triggered by privacy tools. Tornado Cash developer Alexei Pertsev was found guilty and sentenced to almost 5 years in Dutch prison. Right after that, Samurai Wallet founders were arrested and charged with money laundering, and Samurai Wallet was a wallet who was built on the values of privacy and anonymity. And then jury found an operator of Bitcoin Fork, Roman Sterligov, guilty of running a darknet cryptocurrency mixer. They will appeal this case for sure. I know a little bit of details, so it's not that clear that he was really involved in this case. And finally, Roman Storm, again from the Tornado Cash, got arrested, and his case will go to trial in New York next year. I think that actually tells a lot about where regulators look into what they are triggered about. But the space was not all that gloom, and there have been some positive things. And for us human beings, we tend to forget the positive things. We only remember the risks and bad things because that's how we survived as human species, right? Remembering the threats and risks, because that helps us to survive, right? Because next time we know what to hide from. But we should not forget the positive things, because there have been some crypto dramas that were put behind us. First of all, the judge approved the Binance settlement, and finally, the largest crypto player can operate without any lingering legal risks. And CZ is out of prison. He was past week, he was on the blockchain. I think yesterday, yeah, he was on the main conference, and then he was asked a few questions. He was really pumped up, jacked up, was like working out in the prison. Yeah, that's what I read about. So that's a really big positive event, because if Binance would have went down, that would probably drag the entire industry down as well, at least for a certain time. SEC dropped investigation into Ethereum Studio Consensus. That was a big infrastructure player. It is a big infrastructure player within the Ethereum ecosystem. So the fact that they're out of the hook, I think, is also a really big and positive highlight. And probably you don't know Paxos, but Paxos is a company behind a lot of stable coins. They were managing the BUSD, Binance USD coin, Binance stablecoin. So the SEC also dropped the investigation against them. And there have been many more other positive cases that are usually not shared in public. And the idea is that we only know of the cases and the real investigations when the charges were already filed and the lawsuits were filed. But this is the tip of the iceberg. Many other investigations are ongoing, and we don't know about them. And when they're resolved in a positive way, projects don't share this fact. So let me tell you, from working in the trenches, there are many more positive cases that we just don't know about. And on the positive side, there was a lot of legislative initiatives last year, and there have been a couple laws implemented that are supposed to bring a lot of much more legal clarity. And one of the most important ones, I think, the MiCA or MiCA, which stands for Market in Crypto Assets, that comes to force in Europe at the end of this year and become operative starting next year. Also in Turkey, they adopted a new crypto asset regulation bill, new rules, and in Dubai, VARA, the local authority, started issuing operating licenses. We're going to hear from local lawyers, whether this is good or bad, or whether this works or not. I'm not that much familiar with the local regulations, to be honest. There have even been a UK crypto digital assets bill, and even our friends in the States managed to introduce something finally into the law, but it's not yet a law, because it only been passed in the House. Now the Congress, and Biden, or not Biden, the next president, whoever it is, will probably sign or not sign it. And this year, also, probably the largest topic for crypto is that crypto gets a major spotlight in the US elections. All of a sudden, both parties and candidates recognize that there is a sizable portion of US population that have crypto, and some of them are so-called single-issue voters who are willing to change their opinion and political preference based on one question. And then once Trump realized that he went all in on crypto, he promised to create a strategic reserve. He promised that all the crypto must be mined and should be mined in the States. And even Kamala Harris expressed the restrained but positive attitude towards crypto. She said that we need to, promote digital assets in a safe and secure way, and use it to, help the rights of minorities, as she loves to put it this way. Right. Yeah. And I think next week will be a big event in terms of the elections. Probably if Trump gets elected, there will be a huge spike in all the assets, and that if Kamala Harris gets elected, there will be the opposite. Right. And that was my overview of the most important legal events and highlights.